Alright, so before I begin, I just want to point out the, first of all, it's not even, hold on. You can see a little better. Okay, so as you can tell, I redid the background here. Kept the Rocky stuff. Van Damme is still here, obviously. We got the Terminator stuff on the side, and Alien there. And I added Top Gun, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The Sixth Sense, Marked for Death, Jungle, and then we have Supernatural here, and Psycho over here. And then let's Cage is in his new permanent spot over here because I got sick of when I opened it up. Nicolas Cage hanging there, knocking it. Nice of knocking out. So, and there. This will, of course, be changing. Depending on what I'm reviewing, but now it's set up. What we're currently doing, and that is the background. Not no permanent spot for this for now. Right? Yeah, I like it over here. That door kept knocking me on my ass. Yeah. So, that in mind, welcome to March of the Living Dead 2, where this year we are taking a look at the Return of the Living Dead movies. Okay, March of the Dead, the Return of the Dead movies, and some other zombie films. I said of the genre, but of course the genre, the zombie film. Zombie film. We're starting off with a revisited review of Return of the Living Dead. I reviewed this a couple years ago. I want to say it was 2021. I reviewed this. But I'm back reviewing it again and watching it this time. I bought the Blu-ray because I'm like, I want to do the movies. I know a couple of them. You can watch the first one, second one, and the fourth one, Necropolis, on Tubi. Don't have them all though. So I bought them all off eBay. Right. I started out, I just wanted to buy Return of the Living Dead on Blu-ray. Back in November. I wasn't planning on doing this. Back in November, I'm like, I want to buy this. And I started looking up. I'm like, you know what? I should do the sequels. I'm like, wait a minute. March is approaching. Not at that point, March. I could do another March of the Dead. March of the Living Dead. Whatever. March of the Living Dead. And then, March of the Living Dead, whatever. And so, and then I got some more movies I want to do. One of them which is on YouTube, but I will be covering that. It's a weird movie. We'll leave that when we get to it. So, we'll start off with the original Return of the Living Dead, which started out as an actual screenplay script by John Russo, who helped write the original Night of the Living Dead, and kind of wanted to make this as a sequel, and so he had a script called The Return of the Living Dead, and when he finally, sold it to the people, they just took the name and put a whole new script in there. But there was some problems because George Romero, he put out a lawsuit. And if you ever wondered why, after Night of the Living Dead, all of the Romero movies are just of the dead, it's because in the lawsuit, it was determined that Return of the Living Dead can use the Living Dead title in all the movies and the sequels there, and Romero's films will be The Dead, or of the Dead, from now on. So, yes, that's why it's not Dawn of the Living Dead or Day of the Living Dead. It's just Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, so on and so forth, whatever. I know I didn't say those in order, but still. Anyway, these all have of the Living Dead on them, but also every single one of these movies are Return of the Living Dead. They didn't change anything. Like, Return of the Living Dead, you kind of have to keep it right to keep that in there. So it's very weird. And I remember when I first heard about this movie, I thought it was part of that franchise. Obviously not when I did the franchise, but I did think that. And then there's like Return of the Living Dead 2 and 3. 3 gets a lot of praise, I guess. I haven't seen it yet, so I wouldn't know. I'm just like, wait a minute. That's when I started having to look it up, because I'm just like, wait a minute. There's like Night of the Living Dead, and then there's Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and those ones. So they're connected, and this is not connected. They do mention it, but there's a bit of an issue when they do mention it, so we'll talk about it. But yeah, this movie, man. This movie is good, and it's a good movie. We're watching it again. There's just so much good with it that just, and stars Tom Matthews, James Karen, Clu Gulager, and Kolfa, what's his name? Is it on the back here? Don Calfa, along with Miguel A. Nunez Jr. and oh, come on! Why am I so bad with names? She was in she was in the Killer Santa Claus movie. She was in Night of the Demons. Linnea Quigley. Silent Night, Deadly Night. There we go. Yes, Linnea Quigley. Sorry. Just thinking about what she does in this movie, just. Anyway, so tell us the story of these two warehouse workers who, it's like a warehouse for, I got skeletons, and it's like, we're gonna need something that's like a dead body-ish. It's a warehouse for that, like someone needs a skeleton for a school or something, or a cadaver for a medical school or something, they have it. But a deadly gas leak, a gas leak causes the dead to rise in a rural Kentucky town where nobody has a southern accent at all. But, movie. So, yes, we start off right away with Freddy and Frank, played by Tom Matthews, and the late James Karen, who was in an episode of the Nightmare Room, R.L. Stine Nightmare Room. He was in the episode with the teacher, the haunted students. I forgot what it's called, but yeah. And that cast was then reused for a werewolf episode, which still doesn't make any sense. That they're the same characters, but not really. I reviewed all the episodes of Nightmare Room except for the Camp Nightmare ones. But I think it was Camp Nightmare. I haven't reviewed those because I haven't been able to find it anywhere. But anyway, so check those out. Yeah, so Freddy's got a new job, and there's two cutaways during these scenes. There's one that show Freddy's friends and his girlfriend Tina, which is fine. But then there's a cutaway, which was taken out of the original release, but put back in for the DVD release, was of this Colonel. What's his name? Colonel Glover. And then he's like, comes home and talks to his wife and stuff. And it's really not really needed, but it introduces this character so that when they could end up calling him later, it makes sense, And so, then James Cameron's character, Frank, talks to him. He's like, you ever heard of Night of the Living Dead? You know that movie? You ever seen that movie, Night of the Living Dead? And he's like, most of the people think it's a movie, but it's based on true events. And then says, in 1969, there was an incident with this stuff called trioxin, they cause these bodies, you know, to deteriorate, stuff like that. So apparently, Night of the Living Dead was based off of this incident, which is complete and total bullshit. Not only because that's not why it was made in our world, in the real world, but if this incident happened in 1969, how could a movie that came out in 1968 be based on the incident? Oops! Kind of messed that up, didn't you, screenwriter? I caught it right away. I'm like, wait a minute. No. Night of the Living Dead came out in 1968. So why would something happen in 1969 be the basis? You know, and he's like, oh, I got the bodies. They're down in the basement. See, they were supposed to be delivered to someone else, but they got delivered here by mistake. And you didn't say nothing to anyone at all. There's a number I know you could call, but you don't. Okay. Is this starting to get kind of annoying to you? I mean, I like it, but I don't know why I just. But anyway, so they go down to look at these things, and they kind of looking at them and stuff. And he's like, "It is not gonna leak." Oh no, it's fine. He hits one, and immediately a gas leak sprays in the face, gets all over the place, reanimates one of the corpses they got, and yeah, knocks them out. And then they're forced to call Bert, played by Clu Gulager, to come in when shit hits the fan. And so they base all their actions that they do on the Night of the Living Dead movie, because this is what it's supposed to be based on, even though the incident happened a year after it, but you know. Anyway, so they immediately decide to take care of this reanimated corpse that's in this freezer closet. You can hear it screaming. There's a reason for that. We'll get to it. It's like, okay, he gets his pickaxe. Bert gets his pickaxe, and he goes, okay, I want you, Frank, to hit him with it, and I'm going to stand over here, and Freddy, you get over here. Basically, he's letting them take all the, and he's standing and waiting. Okay. Because they're basing this off movie logic. And I didn't realize this when he came out. So I just laughed my ass off when the thing, like, what made you think like it wouldn't run right out and attack you? Because they're basing it off the movie. So in their minds, it's going to be a slow-moving zombie that's going to come out and attack the first person it sees. But they open it, and this thing comes running out and tackles Bert onto the ground or whatever it is that they lays on. And they hold him down, and Bert takes the pickaxe and hits him in the brain, because in those movies, you hit him in the brain, it kills him, but it doesn't. So they cut his head off. Still doesn't kill the fucker. So they chop it in a bunch of pieces, and they gotta take it over to Ernie in the mortuary. And there's a mortuary, a cemetery, and a warehouse all at this one corner. Meanwhile, I must call him Tommy. Freddy's friends have shown up with his girlfriend because they want to party, and they're gonna pick up Freddy and they're gonna go party. But they get there and they decide to go into the cemetery while all this is happening, and they think they see Freddy. They're like, no, that ain't Freddy, man, that ain't Freddy. But it is. And so they're just out there waiting for him while they go, So, we get to the party. We'll talk about this part first. So, Linnea Quigley's Trash is her character's name. By the way, the actor who played Vic in Friday the 13th Part 5, which is the same year it came out, also starred Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who plays Ooh Baby, Demon in that movie. He plays Spider here. Trash is talking to Spider. She's like, you ever think about dying? He's like, no, man. And she's like, I always dream that when I die, a bunch of old men attack me and rip me in pieces. Which is what ends up happening, sort of. Bunch of, she see the future. I don't know, but then she gets all hot and bothered, and if you didn't know this was coming, you'd probably be thrown off, but she just takes her time and goes, and rips her top off and starts dancing naked on this gravestone. And there's something you might notice if you watch this, especially in HD, that she's about as anatomically correct as a Barbie doll down there. Because the MPAA or producers or someone said, no, you can't show that in movies, although we've seen that in a million movies, and I know that sometimes that is faked up. I put the little fur thing on there. Like sometimes you'll see in movies there's like a big, there's like a bush there to cover up stuff. Yeah, that's all put there just to cover stuff up. But this, especially in HD watching this, you could tell, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I even paused it and went up close to the TV. There's nothing there. And I did it specifically for research purposes. Just to research, just to make sure. Just wanted to make sure. I just had to make sure, that there wasn't anything there. I did nothing, But anyway, yeah, she's dancing around, and Linnea Quigley is basically naked for the whole rest of this movie. There's a small part later where she's covered up, and then she dies basically naked, and then when she's a zombie, which doesn't make sense because she's killed by these guys, she's just a white zombie that walks around, no marks at all. So I don't know. Alright, my nose itches, hold on. So anyway, they talk to Ernie, right? We'll go back to the guy, Freddy and them. Talk to Ernie and he say, Bert says, I have a bag full of rabid weasels. He's like, what? He's not believing anything. By the way, Ernie has a gun. A German Luger gun in a holster that he carries around. A mortician that carries a gun around. Beyond me. But anyway, eventually they have to show him what it really is, body parts, and they say, okay, we'll put it in the furnace. Put it in the furnace, and that'll be it. They'll burn up, and it's done. So, put it in the furnace, and we get a line from Frank where he says, I could operate that, which is a setup for something later in the film. And so they burn the bastard, and then smoke goes up in the air and causes acid rain. Don't know why it had to be acid rain, but the acid rain, which by the way causes no marks on anyone's bodies, sure, put that out there, causes everyone to run back into Suicide's car, and they cover the thing, which then start leaking through. Yeah, acid will leak through a roof, especially if it's just below a roof of a convertible. I'm just saying, because those aren't metal or anything. Those are, especially back then, they were like fabric. So, yes, so they end up trying to run. Some of them end up in the warehouse, some of them end up in the mortuary. I think they go to the warehouse first. And they're not there. So it ends up, Spider and Tina end up going to the mortuary where they find her. Yeah, the mortuary. Where they're pretty much, because they find Freddy. And this is sad. They call paramedics to come help. And the paramedics find no pulse, no blood pressure, nothing. These guys are effectively dead. And they're in pain. They are dying and they're in pain. I feel like those who are already dead shouldn't be feeling any pain. But we find out the reason that they're eating brains, because we meet the Tar Man, which is the first utterance the zombie ever said of the word brains, which everyone, when they pretend to be a zombie, brains, which not all zombies do that. I've seen a bunch of zombie movies, and they don't know how to do that. This is the first one that has the insistence that zombies eat brains. If you ask anyone, what does a zombie eat? Brains! But Romero's zombies, they eat body parts. They were flesh eaters. They were originally called Night of the Flesh Eaters. So, yeah. And so you have the first instance of a zombie wanting brains. And yes, I grew up as a dumbass kid, be a zombie, brains, because I thought that's what zombies were. So, it got around. And I hadn't seen this movie yet, but that just, goes to show you stuff can get around. So, yeah. And yeah, the acting in this is so good. Like, Freddy and Frank, they're dying. They're dying, and they're in pain. And so they say, eventually, like, okay, we got to put them somewhere for if they do change. So outside, the acid rain has caused all the corpses in the cemetery to rise. I should note that even though Freddy and Frank were sprayed in the face with the thing and are changing, and then all these dead bodies are coming out of the ground, none of our main characters that are hit by the acid rain turn into zombies from it. The only one of them that really turns into a zombie is Trash, and it's because she dies at the hands of those zombie men. The others die, but don't come back as far as we see. So, yeah, I don't know. But, yes, they're pain, and so they decide to put Freddy and Frank in the chapel and lock the door, but Tina wants to stay with Freddy, which is a dumb idea because Freddy turns, of course he does, and starts to attack her. But the others come back, and Bert throws this, or not Bert, Ernie, yes, Bert and Ernie. Ernie throws this nitric acid in his face, which, again, okay, so the one big complaint I have about this movie is that there's no way to destroy the zombies. You get into zombie movies, and you have a weakness. Cut their heads off. Sever the brains. Something. Brains don't work. Cutting their heads off don't work. Nothing. They eat brains to take away the pain. So they keep calling for paramedics, which, don't you gotta verify this or something? I don't know. But it's never verified. It's like, send more paramedics and send more cops later. It's just, yeah, and it becomes chaos. There's a bunch of these zombies now, hundreds of this attack. But eventually there's nothing. So they have an idea. They got to get in a car and drive away. So the police car that's left out there, Spider and Bert go to... By the way, Bert's a badass coming out of here, just beating the hell out of these zombies with the baseball bat. It's not doing much, but he's a badass. Glue Gluger is a badass. Rest in peace, sir. Yeah, they get in the police car and back up, but they're just covered in zombies. Which, by the way, they call them zombies here and not flesh eaters or ghouls or whatever they call them in Night of the Living Dead. They call them zombies. Plain and simple. Many times. So they're forced to bail on them, leaving Ernie and Tina behind. Freddy is after Tina. They hide up in this crawl space I mentioned earlier, and Freddy says, after he gets the nitric acid, he's like, I know you're up there, I can smell your brains. What does that smell like? Well, I should mention, during the whole thing with Freddy and the nitric acid, Bert got out. Originally, not Bert, Frank. Frank got out. And originally Frank was supposed to join the other zombies outside. But James Karen didn't want to get all wet with the rain that was out there. So, instead, which I think is it's a more sympathetic for his character, he goes back down to the furnace. And he basically commits suicide by burning himself up in the furnace. So, yeah, before he turns. Which, honestly, they were both sprayed at the same time, so by this point he should be turned. But he's not. Freddy is. Maybe Freddy's younger and it doesn't take that. I don't know. I don't know. I think they were supposed to turn at the same time, but this rewrite caused a bit of a problem because you think he would have turned at the same time, but you know. But Spider and Bert try to get away, but they're forced into the warehouse when there's a whole bunch of zombies coming down the street, and they reconnect with the other two dumbasses that are in the warehouse, and Bert takes out the tar man by hitting him with a baseball bat, and they lock themselves in the basement. And then they finally call the number on the military containers, where we get the return of Colonel Glover, and he says, okay, we have a contingency problem, and we'll take care of it. Now, I'm no idiot, okay? I know what it means when you say contingency plan. It means contingency plan is military slang for we're gonna blow it the fuck up. So when they say, well, they have a contingency plan, Bert should be shaking in his boots because they drop a bomb on the fucking place. Killing them. Only problem is the bomb creates smoke, which then goes into the air and causes more acid rain, and it all begins again as the movie ends, and we get a reprisal of the music. And the music in this movie is fantastic. It's 80s, so it's like 80s rock, and the score is great. It's fantastic. And yeah, so yeah, what an ending, but it's not over. And if you're knowledgeable of knowing that Tom Matthews and James Karen come back in the sequel, and you're wondering, like, if they're both dead now, how do they come back? I'm wondering that myself because I haven't seen the sequel yet. I only know that they come back. That's me, only knowledgeable. I'm assuming different characters, but I don't know. Maybe there's zombies. I don't know. I don't think they're zombies, but I don't know. But yes, so Return of the Living Dead. I gotta do it. I haven't done this way in a long time. Return of the Living Dead has to go to the fire moon. I caught it. Yeah, it's upside down now. I'll just hold it right now. So what are your thoughts on Return of the Living Dead? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. By the way, Freddy here looked like he should be in a Michael Jackson music video with that jacket. And this is... Didn't Romero direct that music video? Didn't George Romero direct it? Yeah, so, thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one. As March of the Living Dead 2 continues.